Okay, we'll invite Rick up to introduce our speaker.
So good morning, everybody. If you happen to read the newsletter, it says something like, this week we're going to do the burp. And that's the business recognition program. Well, it burped. Okay? So we had to go back and punt and see what we could do, and that happened 2 days ago. So we look forward to someone in the group who actually paid $2 today for his fine, so that I don't owe him any money for coming up here and doing this today. We asked Steve Gould to come up, along with Peter Adams, to give a State of the Union address on how the real estate is in the Lehigh Valley. So just a little bit about Steve. I don't know how much you know about him. He's the founding partner in Better Homes and Gardens in Emmaus, along with his wife, Carl Valera, Peter Adams, and his father-in-law, who usually sits aside of Wilmer Schultz, Gordy Shans. And Gordy has only the best things to say about Stevie, sometimes. Steve's been married for 18 years to his wonderful wife, Renee. They have two wonderful daughters. Well, they have two daughters. Go to the wonderful part.
That's good.
Okay. Steve has more acronyms behind his name than anybody I've ever met. He's a CRS, a GRI, an ABR, an SRES, and I have no idea what any of those mean. But I think it's something really, really good in real estate. Steve's one of the, I think, top 15 real estate agents in the Lehigh Valley. So we've asked him to speak today, and I do appreciate him getting up and doing it. Thank you, Steve.
Is that one of those initials you have there?
Good morning. Good morning. Does that work?
Is this going to be a workout class?
Buy real estate with no money. How are we doing? Okay. Does that look kind of weird? Yes. No. Looks good on you. How about like that? All right. So, good morning, everyone. 6 o'clock yesterday morning, I went over to a little breakfast meeting with Rick and Bert, and I kind of opened up my own mouth on this one. They said that everything kind of pooped out for today's presentation. They said, do I have any ideas? And I was like, well, I could try to jump in and put something together, but my day was busy yesterday. I will pay a fine for this, Dale. We were just voted 18th fastest growing company in the Lehigh Valley. We went from 25th to 18th this year, so that was really exciting. However, I'm not here to brand myself today. There's nothing branding about me up here. This is specifically perspective and market analysis that I wanted to get into today. And then Pete's going to come up and share a little bit about the commercial market, maybe the investment side. I handle mostly residential, a little bit of commercial. Pete is fully commercial and runs our property management company. So if some of you are lucky enough, about maybe 12 years ago, you were here and I had a nice bag of muumuus and bras, and I put, let's see, I think I put JP in a muumuu, and I put a man bro on Uncle Bob around his shirt. I remember Dale being there with his flip phone, taking pictures. Who was here for that, by the way? Just have a show of hands. Oh, people, all right. It was a rainy, icy January morning. It was not a good morning, but we sure had fun. So, all right. So a lot of people always ask me, how is the real estate market doing on a residential level? So I put together the real estate in Lehigh Valley, the state of the market in fall of 2017. How's the market doing? So what I wanted to do was, some of you may have been here in 2012, in the spring of 2012, I did a similar presentation, and I thought it would be interesting to come back and say what I said back then. So in 2012, what I presented was, as my perspective, the inventory, it was actually the most incredible time to buy real estate. The inventory was very, very low. There was almost no new construction going on. There was a changeover in a lot of the runoff, the water runoff impervious surface called MPDES. A lot of the construction, a lot of the builders were losing their permits, and it was thousands and thousands, tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a community re-permitted. So a lot of the small, medium-sized builders actually just went out. And that's where the market was very, very volatile back in 2012. But not to sound salesy, but in 2012 I was telling everybody, now is the time to buy. Prices were down, interest rates were historically low, The mortgage payment to income was best, basically the affordability of housing was the best ever in history. What's going on now? 2017. It's the most incredible time to buy and sell. Not to sound salesy, but it's an interesting market. Inventory is lower than where it was in 2012. That's a seller's advantage, but it's a buyer's disadvantage. So it's kind of caught up within one another. The perspective of why homes sell and why homes don't. Everybody knows HGTV. Everybody is HGTV'd out, I call it. They want neutral colors, no wallpaper, no pink and green carpets, no plaid, no nothing. It's got to be crate and barreled and HGTV'd out. That's what's selling. The homes that aren't like that are sitting. And the buyers that are coming in and wanting to buy those homes want it to their profitability to buy that home. So for example, if a home is on the market for $100,000 and it just hasn't been updated in a long time, but you know that the comps, if you update it, can get it to $100,000, but it's going to take 20 grand to fix it. The buyer's not coming in at 80 and saying, I'll reach in my pocket and put 20 down and get it to where it's valued at. They're coming in and making offers at 60, so that their 20 is doubled in basically equity in the end. That's the biggest disconnect between buyers and sellers right now on a home that hasn't really had much done to it. And you know, the standard is very, very high anymore. The millennials, not to pick on them, but they don't want to paint. They don't want to mow grass. They don't want to do anything. They want to move right in, and they are predominantly who is buying homes right now in our market. The homes that are updated and priced correctly, there's still a pricing, a lot of analysis has to go into the pricing. They are getting multiple offers right now. It feels like 2005 and 2006 at times, when you have people calling you in the first 2 hours that it's hitting the MLS, and they're saying, hey, let me know if there are any offers coming in. I'm getting in there tonight. This is the house for my client. And it gets very, very interesting. There's still very little new construction. However, it's coming back. We're seeing a lot of builders get a little bit of a resurgence on their MPDS permits, those runoff permits. But it's still more expensive to build a house today than it was back then. And to give you an example of what the, I guess, Corps of Engineers have come up with and so forth, if you look at most of your houses, your spoutings come down and then there's a 6-foot runoff and the water basically just runs off wherever that spouting comes off. That's no more a new construction. They're actually requiring all of the spoutings to come into a plumbing system underground and then going to a seepage pit where it can be absorbed into the ground at whatever levels they're determining when they're doing these tests on the soil levels, whether it's real shaly or something like that. So that's very, very expensive, and all of that has to get approved. So, you know, people in Bill Erzman's positions, fantastic, because this is a whole other set of work that can be done on an engineering level. Am I right? You've seen
that the clients really bitch at you.
clients, yes, yes. Well, I'm not allowed to say bitch because I'm the one up here right now, but it's a good point here. And I'm going to go through, what I did was I pulled a bunch of reports off of the GLVR, that's the Greater Lehigh Valley Association of Realtors. So I brought up a bunch of stuff that I thought you guys would be interested in statistically to show you really where we are. But prices are holding, if not increasing slightly. We're seeing about a 2% increase per year actually statistically. And the most interesting part that I think is interest rates are still extremely low. You're getting your best interest rates with more down, 15-year rate or 15-year amortizations. FHA loans, 3.5% down is probably still the most popular loan. Those are probably in the high 3s for a 30-year mortgage. I mean, that's fantastic. So affordability is still there. And of course, one of the things that I always talk about, and if you're probably older than 60 years old, you have a very hard time with something called seller's assist. Seller's assist means that the buyer can come in and ask the seller to pay for their closing costs. In essence, what they're doing is, and that really upsets anyone that's a senior citizen. Well, when I bought my house, it was 20% down and I paid for my closing costs, Well, we really have no real estate market if it wasn't for FHA or Seller's Assist, because nobody knows how to save money anymore. Nobody can come up with 20% down, so 3.5% down. And what they have is something called protective mortgage insurance. So the government basically insures the difference between, so an FHA, you have to put 3.5% down. So the 16.5% between the 80% and the 100% value, loan to value, the government has the homeowner pay an insurance to them that in the event that they ever go in default or whatever, or foreclosed on, the government comes in and covers that above the 80% loan to value difference back to the second, to the lender. I hope I explained that correctly. But going back to Seller's Assist, what Seller's Assist is if somebody wants to buy a $100,000 house, they have to come up with 3.5%, so $3,500 to buy it, and they can ask for up to 6% Seller's Assist to cover their closing costs, their mortgage fees, their title fees, anything else that gets wrapped in there. But it's typically about 5% cost to buy a house today. That includes your real estate taxes for the first year, et cetera, et cetera. So what happens is the buyer comes in, and instead of offering $100,000, they offer $106,000 with $6,000 Seller's Assist. So the seller is still netting $100,000. So it's not really a disadvantage to the seller because they have a buyer that can afford their home now. The only risk to the seller is it now has to appraise for $106,000 instead of $100,000. And essentially the buyer is financing their closing costs because they're rolling it into the $100,000 to $106,000, and then they have to pay 3.5% down on the $106,000. Any questions on that? How did I do? Did I explain that?
Clear as mud.
Well enough? Clear as mud. Uh-oh. I did something here. There we go. Okay. So statistically, what I'm showing you today is Lehigh and Northampton counties. That's what it looks like when it's puzzled together. And I put this little house in there, so it blocked my activity. But what that said was the activity scenario currently. So 1 year change in closed sales. That is as of the end of September 2016 and the end of September 2017. We're down 3.5% in closed sales in volume. The 1 year change in inventory, this is an incredible number. 23.4% down. We've never seen that, ever. To have that much inventory be down, you can see kind of the beginning of 2005 coming again, where everybody's like, oh my gosh, we have to buy because there's nothing to buy, but that's not happening. And the 1 year change in the median sales price is 2.7%, so that's good, we're going up. Now, just to explain the difference between average and median, if you don't know it, median means it's the exact center point between all the sales. Average is taking all the sales together and dividing by that number of sales. So I'm going to show you a little bit of both. So new listings, this is where our inventory is going down. In September of 2015, we were actually declining. We started to decline. And September of 16, 17, interesting what the market's doing. I was looking at some graphs, and I think I have one here. Everybody always says, when's the best time to buy? When's the best time to sell? And I've seen no really surge in when it happens, but all the graphs show that June, July, August is when the heaviest activity is. But I've had settlements on, December 24th before. People have to reload. There's always death, divorce, and relocation is what I tell people. That's what keeps the real estate market going. But year to date, as you can see, we had 10,360 listings in September of 2015, down 7.9%, down another 3% today, 2017. So closed sales. This is actually interesting because in September, you've seen it go up in 2016, down in 2017. Year to date to this point, we're actually up a little bit. So if we go back, the volume, the 1 year change in closed sales, that's volume of dollar amount. But this is the year to date in numbers. And a lot of these statistics, which when I was analyzing them, they kind of contradict each other. Days on market, this is a big one. This is a really good one. You've seen in the last 2 years, 3 years that it's coming back down. And I think that has to do with a lot of different things. The interest rates being low, the lack of inventory, and so forth and so on. When we were at the height of the market in 2006, the average days on market were in the 30s. That is pretty incredible. So when you're talking about absorption rates, a balanced market is a 6-month supply. So to figure that out, how many homes have sold in the last 6 months, how many homes are on the market, if it's balanced, it's 6 months. Anything under a 6-month supply is considered a seller's market. Anything over a 6-month supply is considered a buyer's market. This is interesting, and I'll just kind of explain it. This is 2005 to 2017, and you can see what happened with the days on market. So actually in 2005, we were right just above 40, but it came down here into the 30s in between 2005 and 2006, and then it slowly started to climb. The worst part of the market for days on market was right around, I'm going to say that is February of 2011, where we were over 100 days average on market. That's when the market was really just not good, not a good place. And then, you know, you see some drops and so forth, and it's steadily been coming down. But what this represents, just so everybody understands, the graph's not so good, but there's 2011. So that dot's January, that dot's February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So they track this monthly. But the days on market,
Steve, there's some pretty consistent peaks there. Do they correspond to like the dead of winter?
they are, and
Okay.
that's the whole thing. So when you're looking at the volume of sales, the graph is actually opposite. So in between, so right in like June, July, this part of the graph is peaked up. But yes, when you look at it, so let's.
I mean, it's almost it's like very
It is.
consistent,
It is.
up and down.
All the graphs look the same in opposite interpolation. So days on market right now, so here we are, and it's really, really dropped. So in 2017, here we were at about 60 days, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. So look, if you look closely, we finally have gotten back to where we were when things went absolutely nuts back in 2005. So median sale price. So September 2015, we were at 170,000. September of 2017, 184,960. Now remember what I said about the median. The median sale price is the absolute middle price. Some people use that as a better gauge than average. Average sale price is something that I like to go by a little bit more, mainly because it's higher. But same thing here, 201,000 in 15 and 218,000 in 2017. So you can see we've been coming up. Right here, I thought this would be interesting to show. In February, let's see, that is February, March, April, May, June, July. In July, what's that?
Put your glasses up.
Yeah, I know, I need my readers, I'm getting there. July of 2007 was our highest peak of average sale price. And that was right around probably $245,000 was our average sale price. So if you want to put a gauge on where we are right now, we're climbing to it. We were down at 202,000, that's 20% lower back in 2015. And now we're up to almost 215,000 as of year-to-date 2017.
Steve, just a question or observation. 2007, the housing market was all artificial because of the guys on Wall Street putting mortgages into bonds. And sure enough, in 2008, the whole thing came crashing down. So
yes,
the median price was very high then, to a large extent, I think, because of that.
Well, this is really where that's as far as we got. That's a good point. There's also, if anybody ever hears what subprime is, what the subprime market, subprime means that lenders were loaning money that they shouldn't have, but the way they were getting around it was they were giving them like ARM deals. So 3-1 ARM, that means that they gave them, instead of a 4.5%, they gave them a 2.5% loan for 2 years. And because they got that 2.5% loan, their ratio of their gross income matched what the legal levels were. So 2 years later come and their mortgage payment spikes $500 and everybody's like, oh my gosh, what can we do? And the reason why they're getting away with it for so many years was because we were appreciating about 10 to 15% a year. So everybody was refining every 2 years just to stay up with it, to keep getting these arms, and eventually, along with Wall Street, it just crashed.
Steve,
Yes.
didn't also what made that even more worse was the fact that people were using the seller assist and increasing the price of their house. to
So
make up
Eileen is
for
a
that?
perfect example of someone who does not like seller's assist.
No, but I worked in the industrial market, which crashed before the residential market, and that's the kind of thing that I could see was the fact that people were overextending how much they could afford in a house by getting a seller's assist, and then all of a sudden, when the job market crashed a little, they couldn't afford those houses, which is what sent everything into a tailspin.
And you definitely have more knowledge of the real estate market than most because of what you did right around that time frame, right? I don't know if I would quantify the seller's assist accentuating the problem. I think the whole issue of it was just compounded. Because, I mean, when you think about it, artificially, maybe prices were up only 5 to 6%, because that's as much as you can ask for in seller's assist. But the reality of it is that the people that were asking for that seller's assist, if they didn't get that seller's assist, if good old Bill Clinton didn't create FHA, all right, we wouldn't have had, I mean, our market would be in a completely different spot right now. He created the American dream by creating FHA, by giving people the opportunity not to have to put down 20%. And they brought in the seller's assist and the FHA product.
Didn't the FHA exist in the 60s?
It did, but nobody really, he's the one that kind of marketed it and said, we're going to push this stuff, we're going to change the regulations.
First house through FHA.
Through the FHA. I mean, guys, it's more than 50% of our mortgages out there right now.
So he created the financial crisis of 2000.
Oh yeah, it's all Bill's fault. Okay, so moving on. So month supply of inventory, if you saw one of the beginning screens, the 27.3% down in inventory, pretty interesting. Back in 15, we were slowly dropping. 2016, we were down another 30%. Well, here we are in 2017, and this shows what the inventory was. So in 2011, like July of 2011, that's when we had the most inventory ever, at least in this 10-year span. And now we're all the way down here to about, what is it? We have 3.2 months of inventory left. That means that at the rate that everything's selling right now, if nothing else came on the market, there would be nothing available in 3.2 months. That is the lowest that I've seen it, well, statistically, since 2006, when the market, 2005, when the market was just awesome. An Eskimo could be sold ice cream back then. And what does that mean, though? And that's what everybody's looking at right now, because our values aren't going up. The appraisers are holding their values. But right now, I mean, we're poised for our market to be just explosive. Will it happen? Will it not happen? Will interest rates stay low? There's a lot of uncertainty moving forward right now because of the fact that in this position, there's just there's something has to burst eventually.
Question.
Yes.
So what's different between now and then? And this is, I'm asking, I don't know. I'm hoping that there's better control over the appraisal side of
Correct.
housing, right?
That
Back
is
then,
one
it
of the
was like,
biggest reasons.
hey, if I don't appraise this at what the bank would like to lend, then they won't call me next time to appraise. So I'll just keep appraising whatever they need me to appraise it at. But that, I think, is tight, hasn't it?
It is totally tightened. Appraisers over the last 10 years have really started to kind of come out of their shells a little bit. They felt like they were all under scrutiny for a very, very long time, and they were. People were losing their licenses if they couldn't justify the appraisals that they were putting. But they are still very, very weary. Market conditions is not a part of the appraisal process. The appraisal process is a federally regulated evaluation system for the banks. And just because a house sells in one day for $30,000 more than it was listed, if that guy can't find comps, that house isn't selling. this is where it's a really interesting market right now because inventory low, this guy's house is beautiful and somebody's willing to pay for it, but because they can't pay for it for cash, they need the bank to help them buy it. Appraisers are shutting the deal. So there's a lot of that going on. It's been going on for really, honestly, the last 2 years. The last 2 years when we started seeing a big decline in inventory. You can see it on the graph here. So I feel that was one of the issues as well. Appraisers were coming in and saying, well, no problem. And the once that happened, it was almost like a domino effect because now there were comps there and there was so much volume that it was easy to find comps. Then after that, when it started coming back down, well, I guess you could say all hell broke loose. But that's the part that we're all sitting back and wondering, naturally, how are we going to be moving forward? So I'm going to ask Pete to come up. I just wanted to quickly show this last screen here. This is East Penn School District, activity by East Penn School District. Just so you know, we're down about 2.2%, but we are up 2.2% in pending sales. We're down 3.4% in closed sales. Our average sale price, we're up higher than pretty much everyone here other than Northwestern Lehigh. Oh, actually there's a lot, but I won't get into that. I'll give some time to Pete. Interestingly enough though, we're at one of the lowest points on this chart for inventory. Inventory is down. We're at 19% low in inventory when, like, for example, it's 23.4%. So we're below the average. 35% down in Allentown, 32% down in the Bangor area. When you get up north, the market's pretty crazy as well. Everyone, my cousin Pete Adams, take it away. You want thanks?
I don't. No, thank you.
You gotta turn it on, Pete. You gotta turn it on. Hit the power button, hold it. Hold it.
Hold it. On?
Yes?
All right. Okay, so I have 4 minutes. Because my cousin was very uncharacteristically long-winded this morning. Also, I will note on your slides, he got the message yesterday at 6:45-ish that this was taking place today. My phone rang at noon, so I had no time to prepare. All that said, as Steve mentioned, I handle our commercial division. I also oversee our property management group. So just a couple of quick highlights for you on our Lehigh Valley commercial real estate market. As it stands today, we're still enjoying a very healthy commercial environment. Changing, yes, the focus has really shifted from industrial. We've all driven 78 and 81. We've seen the development of the 1 million and 2 million square foot warehouses continuing still as far as Shippensburg and down to Carlisle. But the inventory has pretty much been maxed. So the focus has turned from industrial to office. So for people plugged into either office buildings, whether you're an owner, investor, or just looking for office space, things have switched over a bit towards office right now. Average rents are up. Average office rent right now is about $15.64 per square foot, up from about $15.12. And that's echoed in our local micro markets, Emmaus, Macungie, some of the western Lehigh County. But typically the benchmarks are your Class A space. We've all seen the Roma building, buildings like that are Class A around town. Those are about the rents. There are buildings getting more than that. Depends on whether it's triple net or full gross lease, but those are pretty good averages. Retail has been performing well. We've all, again, I say this because we've all been driving our market long enough to look at the Hamilton crossings. That was all pre-leased, and they've done a very nice job. I think the response has been good. There's more construction going on there, so it's been a very positive thing for the developer and for the area. Interest rates, as Steve touched on, are still been fairly benign. We're seeing 4.5% to 5%. Banks are still being very stringent. Michael Hannes is not here, and I can't pick on him. They're still making it difficult for a lot of businesses and people to buy commercial property. It's a very arduous process. Ultimately, loans are getting done, but it's time-consuming and difficult. Multifamily, anybody who's been trying to purchase multifamily or knows that market, it's absolute bananas. Our phone rings regularly, people saying, find me a 5-unit, find me a 20-unit. Good luck. They're just not for sale, and if they're for sale, people are paying insane multiples. They're willing to pay because everybody wants multifamily residential. 2 minutes. Projects of interest in our market. The waterfront project has hit the news fairly regularly over the past 18 months. Jandel's in charge of that. We're hearing again 3 to 6 months before they start construction. Who knows? There are some little signs that may happen. PennDOT's making some noise about some of the infrastructure and roadways, which could mean that's coming. I was actually at a project unveiling last Friday, the old Neuweiler Brewery. A lot of us who are older than my cousin remember Neuweiler. That was purchased by some investors out of Manhattan and is being turned into an office complex. Some neat stuff going on there. Spectacular property. Anyone who's ever been down there, it's really, really got a lot of character. And it's right behind the waterfront. So there's some things happening that could bolster what's going on down there. Downtown Allentown, everyone in this room is going to have an opinion. Is it going to happen? Is it going to continue? Everyone's guess is as good as everyone else's, but the money's still flowing down there. In the paper this week, Fegley just announced, Fegley of the Brewworks family, just announced a 19,000 square foot office complex 2 doors down from PPL. So real money is being put on the chopping block down there. Tower 6 opens next year. That's 142,000 square feet of office space. So our health networks, people are still being courted to send jobs down there and to occupy this office space, but time will tell. And of course, the proposed 5 city center, which if it happens, will be the tallest building in the state outside of Pittsburgh and Philly. It'll be taller than PPL, but that's still on paper right now, not real dollars there yet. Lastly, I'll just touch on property management. We do both commercial and residential. Still very healthy. Nationally, rents are very strong residentially. So people who have residential rental properties need property management companies, but very, very good investment because rents are very strong. And around our western Lehigh County, because of our school districts primarily, rental vacancies are very, very short. A good, well-maintained rental property rents very quickly. So I think I pulled it off. Thank you. Thanks for sticking around. Yes, I'm sorry, a couple of quick questions.
With respect to downtown Allentown in
Yes.
particular, is all this new construction a build it and they will come thing, or are people already pre-signed up for all of this space that's coming online?
Pre-signed up, no. A lot of it is built on spec. They are always courting, a cornerstone when that Penn went down there. That was a big cornerstone. But there's kind of a mix of both, but there's no true pre-leasing for projects of that scale, which is why you hear waterfront in the news for so long, and then nothing happens. Because they're trying, but they're not succeeding in pre-leasing. Yes?
So the building across from America on Wheels, which has been blighted and sitting there for 40 years,
Yes.
will close in the next week. That's a QNB syndicate between AEDC, whom I work for and did the loan there,
Okay.
LVEDC, and the city of Allentown. That will be commercial and residential. There'll be apartments on the top floor and business on the ground floor, which will be automobile centric. So starting to form a cluster there right adjacent to the waterfront.
Exactly right. And right down from the Neuweiler, that's a couple
That's right.
blocks down.
Right.
That's
So it's starting to happen there.
it is.
Give us some thoughts about how will we know if Allentown wins or loses and what kind of time frame? I mean, what will happen? I mean, within 10 years will we know if it's a win? And
I think
will a loss mean if it's got 30% vacancies for forever? And what would be some attributes of what success?
it's a fantastic question, and we get asked that all the time. My personal opinion, and that's all I can offer, is I think it's much less than 10 years. Because of the dollars at stake and interest rates. So the whole concept, when you do a market like downtown Allentown, a la Cleveland, it's the whole live, work, play. So I think we got it backwards. I think the writing will be on the wall sooner. I'm thinking 5 years. So, last question, then I'm going to get booted.
The one thing that's been left in the dust is the PPL Center. How bad is that situation? That one is, there's articles in the paper that suggest it's really struggling. What are your thoughts on where that might go?
I don't have a crystal ball on that. I agree. The news is not great. I think I would never go so far as to say it's smoke and mirrors, but I think it's very tricky to find out exactly how bad it is or what the prognosis is now. But this is a lot of what's going to happen when they're talking buildings on this scale. If that starts to become more of a focus and more of a reality, they're gonna have a hard time compelling people to put shovels in the ground to do this kind of work. So, I don't know. So, thank you.